Hare Krishna. Welcome to ISKCON Kirtan Ministry's Unfiltered podcast. And today we have with us a wonderful devotee, His Holiness Keshava Maharaj. Thank you so much for coming, Maharaj. Maharaj is an astounding preacher, travels all over the world, from continent to continent, sharing Krishna consciousness with so many different audiences. And he always stresses on the power of the holy name and the importance of Kirtan, our Yuga Dharma. Thank you so much for joining us today, Maharaj.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. And it's wonderful you're doing this podcast to raise this awareness and Kirtan consciousness, which is our heart and soul.
Jai Ho, Jai Ho. Thank you. I'd like to ask you, Maharaj, how did you first come in contact with Kirtan? What are your earliest memories?
Yeah, I was coming to the temple from a young age, so I was exposed to Kirtan and the Maha Mantra. But I remember one incident where the Maha Mantra really penetrated my heart. I must have been maybe 9 or 10 years old, and I was traveling in Amsterdam, of all places, with my parents. And I remember being in Dam Square, right in the center of Amsterdam, and hearing these drums and these cymbals and wondering who it was. And then I saw the Harinaam party come, chanting the holy name in unison. And I ran into the shop because it was a little overwhelming for me, and I watched them from the window. And it was a very profound experience of seeing the Harinaam and the holy name out there, because I had seen it in the temple and heard it in the temple. But there was something about the holy name sung in the streets of Amsterdam that really penetrated my heart. And it's interesting because now I go to Amsterdam for the big King's Day Harinaam that we have, and I can still remember the exact spot where I heard that Harinaam party. So I just wanted to share that because devotees going out on Harinaam may not fully know how much of an impact they have on people and that impression it creates.
Yeah, some people, the Harinaam just resonates so much with them, whether it's a big Harinaam or a small Harinaam. I remember one time I was in Dublin and I was a busker. I was playing my trumpet with a bagpiper player. We had a duet and we're making a lot of noise. And a Harinaam party came with only 3 devotees. Someone playing kartel, someone playing mridanga, and someone with a big basket of sweet balls. And they gave me a sweet ball, and I remember that also. That touched my heart so much.
Yeah. I'd also like to share the other point where the holy name of Krishna really created an impression on me was the first time I heard Srila Prabhupada sing in the classic Hare Krishna tune. And there was just something about his resonant voice which was just, like almost from another realm of existence that really was like, it put you into some kind of trance. So I still often listen to that original Kirtan of Srila Prabhupada, which has a deep impression on the heart.
Yeah, that original Kirtan of Prabhupada, I also listen to it all the time. It just penetrates the heart. It creates elevation of consciousness. So I thank you so much for sharing that, Maharaj. It's beautiful. Maharaj, what about your family? Do you remember them performing Kirtan as a young child? Do they also perform Kirtan?
I grew up in a Hindu family, so we were always doing puja at home. We never sang the Maha Mantra, but we sang other arti, bhajans, and which contained Krishna's names. So I guess from there, Nam Nam Akari Bahuda Nijasarva Shakti, in all Krishna's names are potency. So I'm sure that created an impression on me as well. But the Maha Mantra was something I used to hear mainly at the temple.
And when was the first time you came in contact with the Maha Mantra? Was it in Dam Square or was it another time?
I had been going to Bhaktivedanta Manor from birth. So I guess my first contact was before I could probably remember. And I also remember another incident being in the Bhaktivedanta Manor temple room when I was maybe very young as well, maybe 10 or 11, and that would have been in the late 80s or early 90s. And all the devotees, it became an ecstatic kirtan, and the devotees began dancing. And it kind of blew my mind, because I always thought of the temple to be a kind of very serious place, a place where you soberly meditate and pray. And seeing the exuberant dancing also created an impression in me, like, wow, oh my God, this is really joyful. Yeah.
It's like when Lord Chaitanya was on the roof of the palace with King Prataparudra, and all the devotees had come from Navadvip, and the king was like, what is this? Yeah. What's going on? And it was explained, this is Prem Sankirtan. Yeah. So we carry that over in ISKCON.
Yeah, that's a beautiful. Bhattacharya kohe e madhura vachan, Chaitanya shrishtir e Prem Sankirtan. He says, the Bhattacharya says, this is a very sweet sound. This is a different creation, the creation of Mahaprabhu, known as Prem Sankirtan. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So, Maharaj, how did you learn to sing, play harmonium, mridanga, different instruments? When did you first learn?
I have to admit, I'm not as an accomplished a musician as yourself and many other illustrious Vaishnavas. But through my years doing kirtan with others, I didn't really take any music lessons or any instrument lessons. In hindsight, I kind of wish I had done that, because I feel that kirtan is such a important offering to Krishna that if we put a little bit of attention and try and do it in the best way possible, then that's also an exhibition of our devotion. But somehow in my life I managed to pick it up by watching the devotees, by playing along with the devotees, by hearing the devotees sing, and that's how I learned.
You just picked it up along the way.
Yeah.
Some would be playing, you would match them.
Right, yeah. And even the songs of the Vaishnavacharyas, I don't even remember a time necessarily when I sat down and memorized all the words, but just by singing along and being with the devotees, it all kind of came about. So, yeah, I guess that's the story of my life.
You're like a sponge in the gulab jamun juice of ISKCON, soaking up.
Yeah, well, trying, definitely.
Learning all these Vaishnava songs.
Yes.
What do you think about singing Vaishnava songs in the Kirtan? And what does it mean to you for singing Vaishnava songs?
The Vaishnava songs are incredible, because what they do is they take the essence of Vaishnava philosophy and then they combine it with the deep bhav of the heart, the mood of begging and crying for Krishna. And that combination of bhava and siddhanta is the Vaishnava songs. And so they're a very, very beautiful way to not just grasp the philosophy, but to really bring it into one's heart and cry for Krishna. So I remember Govinda Maharaj, he used to say, we are not creating temples, but we are creating crying houses where people can come and learn the art of how to cry for Krishna. So the songs of the Vaishnavacharyas are very much helping us develop that mood of a beggar. And of course, we know Srila Prabhupada himself, the world Acharya, would in the night time behind closed doors just sit with a harmonium and sing those songs by himself, relishing the words. So it's a great gift we've been given.
It's a great opportunity to relish Krishna consciousness by singing those songs.
100%, yes.
Learning to cry for Krishna.
Yes.
You're initiated by His Holiness Kadamba Kanana Swami Maharaj, who's also renowned as a great lover of Kirtan and the holy name. So can you share with us some memories you have of performing Kirtan, either in the temple or outdoors, Harinaam Sankirtan, with His Holiness Kadamba Kanana Swami Maharaj?
Yes. ISKCON is beautiful because we have so many Kirtaniers and they all chant in their own unique ways. And Maharaj also had his unique way of chanting. He'd usually go about 3 mantras and then he'd be into like 4th gear and it would be moving. And that was very much his mood of kirtan. It was quite high energy, it was quite high paced. And what he really tried to do was bring everyone into the kirtan in such a way that they were engaging all their energies. He would get people dancing, he would get people chanting very exuberantly, and he would sing tunes which everyone could easily follow. And like this, he would really bring an opportunity for people to fully give themselves in the kirtan. So oftentimes he said, I'm not playing the instruments, I play the crowd. Mm-hmm. In other words, his emphasis was on how to bring everyone together to make that joint offering of calling out to Krishna. So many wonderful memories of him in kirtan, dancing for hours on end, watching him pump the harmonium so vigorously that it needed to be replaced about 3 times in the kirtan. Having mridanga players retire because they were not able to keep up, and others coming in to take over. But still, one thing that stuck out with me about Maharaj was that his kirtan was never scripted. He almost chanted, and we never quite knew where the kirtan would go. He would just kind of go with the emotions and the feeling within. And I very much appreciated that. It was a very spontaneous and natural type of kirtan from the heart.
Never the same, just playing the crowd and seeing where the crowd would go.
Right, yeah. He really wanted to bring everyone into the experience. One thing he would always do is try to sing tunes that everyone could follow. Because sometimes what happens is if the tune is too complicated, then some people become alienated from the kirtan. So he would very much focus on trying to keep everyone very much focused.
What about some memories of outdoor Harinaam Sankirtan with Maharaj in Dam Square and other places?
Yeah, we would go on King's Day, which was always a highlight. For those of our viewers that don't know about King's Day, it's probably one of the biggest Harinaams in the Western world that we have. And we go out into Amsterdam and we chant. And everyone is there for a party. And no one knows how to party like the Hare Krishnas. And so we'd have a kirtan group of 200-300. And every year there'd be a point in the kirtan where we'd get to a place called Vondel Park. Back in the 60s, Vondel Park was kind of an interesting place because it's where all the hippies would hang out, and it's kind of alternative place. And every year in Vondel Park, as we go through, there's this one point in the park where there's a bridge. And one year, I remember we were under this bridge, and the drums and the resonance of all the devotees chanting, it was the most incredible experience. It almost felt as though the whole earth was shattering. The earth was moving. And it was the most incredible experience. So yes, it was many times on Harinaam, I just saw how he chanted tirelessly. Recently, I was in New Vrindavan. And in Prabhupada's Palace of Gold in New Vrindavan, they have Prabhupada's original bongo drum. So they put that bongo drum on my head, and for a few moments I just remembered Prabhupada, who sat in Tompkins Square Park with that bongo drum and just chanted for 3 hours. And you could see his veins and his complete kind of giving himself to that kirtan. So I really felt like Kadamba Kanana Maharaj followed in that mood to just give everything when he chanted.
I appreciate so much about Maharaj's kirtan and the joy that it evokes in other devotees, and exuberance and absorption. And I especially appreciate that he's not just chanting in the temple, but he takes the kirtan out to the public. It's so important to him. Can you speak a little bit about the mood of the importance of taking Harinaam Sankirtan out of the temple and into the streets and into the public?
Mahaprabhu's movement began in Srivasangan. And there in Navadvip, the devotees gathered and they chanted all night and they generated such an energy. But the energy became so fever pitch that the doors couldn't remain closed. And therefore at one moment the doors had to open and that kirtan had to enter the streets of Nadia. Mahaprabhu's kirtan party is explained was like a whirlwind. It's explained in the Chaitanya Bhagavat that the kirtan party would come past a village and it would be like a whirlwind, and as it would come past the village, all the villagers would get sucked into the kirtan, into the whirlwind. And it's said that the whirlwind kirtan would move on and entire villages would be emptied. People would enter the kirtan and they were never seen again. So Mahaprabhu's movement is a movement which takes place on the street. And when we take the holy name out on the street, where anyone and everyone can meet Krishna in the form of the transcendental vibration, then Krishna becomes present in a very special way. And so I have to say some of my most magical kirtan experiences have been on the street, because the name wants to go everywhere. And when we serve the name, by taking the name everywhere, then the name gives us more entrance into the sweetness of the Sankirtan. So yes, it's a legacy that we must continue on. We should never go underground. We should always be overground.
Carrying on the legacy of the holy name,
Yes.
continuing the practice of keeping the doors open of Shiva Sangam.
Yes, definitely. Yes, this is what Srila Prabhupada did when he came to America. He went out immediately. He didn't wait. He went out. And it's interesting because even the devotees in 1965, I think it was, when Prabhupada told them to go, I think first to Washington Square and then to Tompkins Square. And even the devotees were a little bit like, I don't know, like we do this in the temple, but I don't know if we do this outside. So Prabhupada pacified them and Prabhupada said, I'll come with you. And Brahmananda Prabhu remembers that when Prabhupada started chanting, he would get up and dance because he knew Swamiji liked it. And he said, I felt embarrassed to sit down in the kirtan. It could have been an offense. So he said, I just carried on dancing for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And so that eternal kirtan from Tompkins Square Park, underneath the Prabhupada tree, the Hare Krishna tree, that kirtan is now emanating all over the world.
And devotees are still dancing.
And they're still dancing.
Yeah.
Vakreshwara Pandit would dance in the kirtan for 72 hours non-stop. And Mahaprabhu looked at him once and said, Vakreshwara, you are my great devotee, you are like one wing. And if I had one more devotee like you, I could fly in the sky.
We need more devotees like this
Yes.
to take this Harinaam, dance in the kirtan, and distribute it to the public.
Yes, definitely.
What instructions have you heard from His Holiness Kadamba Kanana Maharaj regarding kirtan?
Maharaj told me a few things about kirtan which were quite simple, but which I try to follow to this day. The first thing he told me to do is sing a tune that everyone can follow, which is a simple instruction, but always something which people can follow, because Sankirtan means we're trying to get everyone involved. So that's one thing he told me to do. The second thing he told me to do in Kirtan is he said, be yourself. Oftentimes, whether it's speaking or whether it's singing, we tend to try to emulate the way another devotee does it. And while we can take inspiration from everyone, Kirtan and Harikatha, Harikirtan, these are expressions from our heart. And therefore we have to do them in an authentic way that feels very natural to ourselves. And so he always encouraged me that be yourself in Kirtan. He said, don't try to be like me, you'll never do it. Once I asked Maharaj if he could teach me some of his tunes. So he was sitting with a harmonium, I was sitting with a harmonium, so I was sitting across from him. So he was showing me the chords and I was trying to copy, and he was showing me and I was trying to copy, and then he was singing and I was singing, and he looked at me and he goes, you'll never sing like me. And he said, but you don't need to sing like me. He said, just sing from your heart, be yourself. So that was another instruction that he gave me. And the third instruction, I guess, that really comes to my mind that he always reminded me about is that we're singing for Krishna's pleasure. So we always try to keep the focus on being a servant when we're leading the kirtan. Rather than bringing attention to ourselves, we try to bring attention to the holy name, we try to bring attention to the deities. So yes, these are some points.
Can you speak a little bit more about this mood of offering kirtan as an offering, arpanam, for Krishna's pleasure?
Yes, kirtan comes from the word kirti, which means fame. So kirtan means to increase the fame of Krishna. What we're trying to do in the kirtan is help devotees experience how sweet Krishna's name is. It's not sweet because it's coming from our mouths. It's sweet because despite it coming from our mouth, which is compromised, it still can have a transformational effect. So that's what we try to do. And we have to, again, do it in a genuine way where we are not trying to sing as a performance. We're not trying to sing to show our own abilities. We're not trying to sing in order to increase our own prestige or fame. But we generally sing to just act as a facilitator to bring everyone into that chanting.
Can you speak more about the transformational effect of kirtan? What is that effect and how does it work?
Kirtan transforms us in an imperceptible way. Rupa Goswami says, when the two syllables Krishna enter the courtyard of my heart, then they begin to conquer all my senses. In other words, kirtan is giving us a higher taste. Kirtan is connecting us to another dimension of spiritual experience. And while we may not always be able to stay there, what the kirtan does is it gives us a glimpse. And then in the next kirtan we get another glimpse. And by every kirtan, by every holy name, by tuning in, one begins to rise to that spiritual dimensional level and begin to stay there more and more. So this is what kirtan is doing. It's lifting us out. It's descending from the spiritual world. Golokera, Prema Dhan, Harinaam, Sankirtan. So it's descending and then it's capturing and then it's bringing us back there. So pretty powerful.
It's like a transcendental lift, transcendental elevator coming down. The doors of the lift open.
Right.
We come inside and it takes us back
we
there.
go back up, yeah.
Have you ever seen His Holiness Kadamba Kanana Maharaj stop a kirtan for any reason or correct devotees during the kirtan?
Yes, I have. On one occasion, he stopped the kirtan when he was singing the tune, but the audience was not singing the tune exactly as he was singing it. They weren't completely off, but there was a kind of tonality which they were missing. And so for him, that was important to point that out. Because I think for him, it was maybe something which indicated a level of not being fully present in the kirtan. To be fully present in the kirtan means to be all ears. And that means to understand every nuance of the music of the mantra. So I've heard him stop kirtans on numerous occasions when people didn't respond exactly according to the tune. I've also seen him stop kirtans when the instrument players have been out of sync. It's sung kirtan, so that means everyone has to play together, and as everyone plays together, then it carries that whole vibration. So oftentimes I've seen him stop and ask people to again come into line and be aligned with everyone else.
Especially when the mridanga players, they don't match. One mridanga player is playing like Daginate Takadena, and the other mridanga player is playing a Prabhupada beat, or someone is playing the T-highs, Tirikata Da, someone else is playing a different T-high, and it creates a mismatch.
A mismatch, Yeah, not only do we miss out on that beautiful synergy of having the beat together, but it also almost in some ways cancels out each other, and then we have not much at all. So so I've seen him do that. And I guess the other time I've seen him stop kirtan is when I think there were situations where in the room there were other things going on, or some kind of disturbance or some kind of other activity, and he kind of stopped the kirtan to remind everyone that kirtan is serious business. Sometimes kirtan is pitched as this kind of thing that you do while everyone is kind of rolling into the room before the start of a program. All right, let's just start a kirtan before the real program starts,
It's like a preliminary event.
Like the preliminary. So he didn't like that at all. Like his idea was that, not his idea, but what he was trying to share was that, no, it's, as you said, it's an offering. And that means we all have to be completely present. It's not like, when we do arti on the altar, it's not like, oh, the arti is begun, now everyone's just kind of rolling in. No, everyone's there before the curtains open. And then the curtains open, and then we do the arti, and everyone's part of it. So kirtan is also like that. It's not a casual activity. It has to be done with everyone very much present, like that.
It takes a lot of focus to get the maximum benefit.
100%.
How to get the maximum benefit from participating in kirtan?
So it means we have to, we can see there's 3 levels. We can say the hand, the head, and the heart. So the hand represents our activities. The head represents our awareness of what we're doing. And the heart represents the bhav, or the love that we're doing it with. So when we do the kirtan, the hand means like have the right instruments, have the right setup, chant audibly. The head means be attentive. Don't be looking at your phone. Don't, try to multitask. Be in the kirtan. And then the heart means to then try to sing, cry from a deeper space. This is Atma Krandan, the cry of the soul. So when we bring all of these 3 elements in, then it becomes absorbed kirtan.
Beautiful, thank you for sharing that. Maharaj, what do you think are the importance of kirtan guidelines and kirtan standards in ISKCON?
As you mentioned, kirtan is an offering. Kirtan is the principal anga of devotional service. And if we look at all of the services that we do for Krishna, all of them have guidelines. If you're a pujari on the altar, then there are guidelines. It's not spontaneous. If you're cooking for the deities, it's not spontaneous. There's a recipe, there's a guidelines. If you do any kind of service, there are guidelines which help us to bring the best of our consciousness into that activity. So now His Holiness Jai Advaita Maharaj has written a book on kirtan standards and
Srila Prabhupada's kirtan
Srila Prabhupada's kirtan standards, which is important because nobody should think this is anyone's personal opinion or idea, but these are the very guidelines that Srila Prabhupada himself lived and taught. And so if it was important to Srila Prabhupada, these guidelines, then it should be important to us as well. And so definitely these guidelines are something that every Kirtaniya and every devotee in ISKCON is a Kirtaniya, because Kirtan is our life and soul. So everyone should try to read those guidelines and be fully aligned with Srila Prabhupada's mood and method of Kirtan.
One of those important guidelines is that the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra should be the prominent mantra in every Kirtan. Sometimes we hear devotees singing other mantras and seemingly neglecting the Maha Mantra. Could you speak a little bit about that, the importance of Hare Krishna being the primary mantra?
Yes. We know the famous quotation, Iti Shodashakam Nam Nam Kalikal Mashanashanam Nata Parataropaya Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. If you search through all the Vedic scriptures, Nata Parataropaya, you will not find anything higher, Iti Shodashakam Nam Nam, than these 16 names. And therefore we have to understand the exalted nature of the Hare Krishna mantra, that everything is contained. Mahaprabhu was told by his own spiritual master, Krishna mantra japa sada, a mantra sar. Just keep chanting this mantra, it's the essence of everything. So the mantra needs no upgrade, the mantra needs no update, the mantra needs no hard and fast rules, but one must simply follow the basic guidelines with love and devotion and focus the energy there. So yes, let us keep, that's what Srila Prabhupada did. He focused on the Maha Mantra. He was in Tompkins Square Park and he just chanted the Maha Mantra for 3 hours. And it was perfect.
Sometimes we hear the musicians, the drummers, the kartal, the wampur players, they play at such a high volume that it's very difficult to hear the sound of the chanting. Could you kindly shed some light on the proper mood of the instrument players?
Everything is augmenting the holy name. Everything is a support. And therefore, if the support takes over and becomes the prominent, then we lose the orientation of what we're doing. So the music, the melody, the instruments, even the dancing, all of that is meant to help us glue our mind to the holy name. But if in the process of doing those things, the holy name then takes a backseat, then we have missed the point. And so yes, we must remember that it's not a musical performance, but rather it's a mantra that we have to focus on.
Yes, the mantra is timeless, and Mahaprabhu performed kirtan with beautiful instruments like mridanga, kartal, danta,
Yes,
and janj or wampers. And sometimes we see today in ISKCON some new instruments are being introduced to the kirtan. One in particular I wanted to discuss with you, and that is a particular very big size drum that becomes very loud in the kirtan sometimes. So could you share your experience with this, and where do you feel it's appropriate, where do you feel it might not be appropriate, and is it appropriate at all? How do we understand introducing of new instruments into the kirtan?
in the temple, especially in closed spaces, instruments have to be carefully chosen because they can easily begin to dominate the landscape. So Srila Prabhupada himself said, for temple kirtan, mridanga kartal, wampas maybe, and harmonium in certain situations. So definitely it seems that in our temples, if we can stick to those standards as given by Srila Prabhupada without having to introduce anything new, that will be beneficial to our practice of kirtan. Outside, we may have some room for creativity as we try to bring the holy name to many people, and we bring the holy name to different cultures. Nowadays I travel in Africa, and we try to bring everyone into an experience. And sometimes if there is a culturally familiar instrument for the local people, then it helps them to identify more with the kirtan. So we could say perhaps in certain preaching situations there may be a license. But we should always remember the golden rule that everything is simply meant to augment and bring attention to the holy name.
What guidelines can you share with us now, our audience, to ensure that our kirtan offering is of the highest possible standard as an offering to the Lord?
So as mentioned, His Holiness Jai Advaita Maharaj has written the books with all those guidelines, and we encourage all of our viewers to purchase that book and study it, as kirtan is our main offering in this age. I guess we could highlight a few major things from there that Maharaj talks about. The first, as you mentioned, is mantras, to be very careful what mantras we sing. Some mantras are not bona fide mantras. Some mantras have been introduced over time that Srila Prabhupada never personally used. And some mantras may begin to take more precedence than the Hare Krishna mantra. So I think the first guideline, as you mentioned, is to keep the Maha Mantra in the focus. I think another guideline is definitely on different kind of trends that take place now in kirtan, where we try to kind of go back and forth or split the crowd and have different people doing different things, splitting the mantra sometimes and doing like 2 or half a mantra, and then so we tend to get quite creative in our chanting, which may come from a sincere space. But generally we find Srila Prabhupada didn't do that so much. So we should just be careful of that. A simple call and response will do the trick. And I guess the third guideline, which we already talked about, was the instruments and how we should try to keep those strict, and things like harmonium, knowing when to use it, when not to use it. Even though Srila Prabhupada did use it, he also gave guidelines of when to use it. So like that.
I remember several years ago that it became popular at one point in ISKCON kirtans, and the kirtan leader will say, "Now the ladies chant, and now the gentlemen will chant." And it was decided by the GBC that this should be avoided, because it creates a upadi,
a bodily concept.
Yeah, can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, in the kirtan we are trying to come in front of Krishna as a spirit soul. We're trying to remove and come out of our identities, our temporary masks and bodies that we're wearing. And therefore to again create this kind of situation in the kirtan of men and ladies, we again begin to think of each other as, oh, that's the ladies singing, and now we're the men singing, and the ladies are not as loud as the men, or the ladies are singing more sweetly than the men, and it becomes again this duality that we're trying to transcend.
Okay, Maharaj, in your experience, your perception, what are some mistakes that you perceive and sometimes devotees do in the kirtan, how that can be avoided?
Probably I'd answer similar to my other answers which I gave you. It could be to do with which instruments they play. It could be to do with the tunes that they sing. It could be to do with unnecessarily breaking the mantra, or kind of, creating a musical kind of performance thing around it. So I guess these are some of the things. Another thing that Kirtanias might want to be, which I also struggle with, might want to be careful of, is just what pitch they also sing on. Because, sometimes we sing so high that it's difficult for some to follow, or so low, or there's such a range that at a certain point it becomes difficult. Of course, we've all been blessed with different voices which have different vocal ranges and so on and so forth. But again, to try to give everyone the best chance to participate.
Not being specific, but sometimes people want to come up with some innovative styles in Kirtan, some new melodies, some new ways of presenting Kirtan. So how do we know if something is an innovation or it's a deviation?
I can only share with you my understanding, which is that new tunes are not a problem. The Maha Mantra is unlimited, and the Maha Mantra can be decorated in unlimited ways. But again, as long as the principles of chanting are maintained, that everyone is able to follow, that the mantra is clearly heard, that the pronunciation is accurate. Sometimes in the process of musically creating something, we may compromise the pronunciation. And maybe this is something we haven't spoken about so far in this, but this is also very important, that these syllables also need to be pronounced accurately. I think Prabhupada once pointed that out. Who is this Ramo? I think he said at one point, when referring to a Kirtaniya who was chanting Ram as Ramo. Of course, we all have different accents, we all have different kind of dialects, so we may bring in some of that, but for the most part to try to pronounce accurately.
And this Ramo, and then sometimes people extend it, they elongate it, and they do all kinds of embellishments, and may go on for an extended period of time also. We often see that nowadays.
Yes.
Would you like to comment on this?
Yes, this is a part of our tradition, this is a part of what's going on in our culture. I don't want to be here to judge anyone. I'm sure everyone comes from a very sincere space, many devotees, but again, I would say that we need to try to sing in such a way that, number one, we bring the attention to Krishna, and number two, we do it in such a way as to be inclusive. And so again, we may want to be careful about too many musical embellishments, because it may take that focus away.
By singing very elaborately, then the focus may come more on the singer, and then the audience becomes an audience. As opposed
it's a performance rather than exactly.
And the congregation stops chanting and just becomes listeners of the performance of the singer.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to be very careful of that.
Yes.
Yes. Maharaj, how do you prepare for Kirtan? When you know that you've been asked to lead a Kirtan in the temple or Harinaam Sankirtan, what kind of preparations, mentally, spiritually, even maybe physically, what kind of preparations do you undergo when you know you have a Kirtan coming up?
I guess first to just connect with the devotees who you're doing Kirtan with, to have an acknowledgement, an understanding that now it's not me, it's all of us together. I think that's important, because when all the Kirtaniyas are on the same page, as it were, then we can make a more beautiful offering. I think that's one thing. I think the second thing is, again, to be aware of your audience, and to be aware of how we can bring them into the whole experience so that they can chant from their hearts. So sometimes we have to be aware that certain tunes or certain ways of singing may be more relevant or may be more difficult, and therefore to try to make it as easy as possible for everyone to participate in the Kirtan. That's also another thing. And then I think the third thing is just, yes, we pray to Krishna that let me do this as an offering to you. And let me take myself out of the center. And yeah. Ramananda Rai, he says, Mahaprabhu, you are asking me questions, I am answering, but I am just like a stringed instrument and you are the player. So if any good sound is coming out, then all the credit is yours. So like that.
So we should see ourselves as the instrument of
The
Krishna.
stringed instrument.
Stringed instrument.
Now, play me as you wish.
And similar to the Prabhupada's poem on Jaladuta, right? You can speak about that.
Yeah, Prabhupada says, now I am a puppet in your hands. Make me dance, make me dance, make me dance as you wish. Prabhupada also says in that poem, now I pray to you, Krishna, make my words suitable for their understanding. So the Kirtaniya can also pray, make me sing as you wish, and make my Kirtan suitable for their understanding and participation.
What is your vision for Kirtan in ISKCON in the next 20 years? What do you see is going to happen?
More. Yes, Kirtan is our life and soul, so the more devotees are doing Kirtan together, as you mentioned, the more devotees are also taking that ecstasy out. The more devotees are also going deeper in their japa. This is perhaps something we also want to share, that the best Kirtaniyas who are able to serve Krishna in that way also have very deep personal Naam bhajan. And when we connect with Krishna all alone while on the beats, then when we come out to serve Krishna by chanting His holy name in the company of others, we become a much more potent instrument. The other thing that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says is that Srimati Radharani is the Swarup Shakti of Krishna. And just as we never worship Krishna without Srimati Radharani, the holy name, the Swarup Shakti is Harikatha. Harikatha is the Swarup Shakti of Harikirtan. And therefore, if you do Harikirtan but you don't do Harikatha, it's like worshipping Krishna without Srimati Radharani. And therefore, we pray also that devotees will engage in Harikatha, so that when they chant Hari Kirtan, they will do so with the right conception and the proper consciousness.
What advice would you give ISKCON leaders in their local area, how to promote Kirtan in their local area?
Now we can do Kirtan festivals, which have become very popular, especially the youth find an incredible connection there. I would suggest that as part of every Kirtan festival, one section is to also go out on the street. My humble suggestion would be that no Kirtan festival is complete unless the Kirtan goes out on the street. So we can do this. We can have regular Harinaams. Now in many cities across the world, they have the monthly Sankirtan festival, where they all go out on Saturday, so we can do that. And yes, like this, we can also encourage devotees to learn the instruments. We can encourage the devotees to learn the standards. And by doing this kind of education as well, it naturally encourages people to do more Kirtan.
Maharaj, could you share a few words about encouraging devotees to participate in the World Holy Name Festival every year, September 17 through September 23rd, and September 17 being the day that Srila Prabhupada landed in America?
Once there was a famine, and the government were trying to come up with all the solutions the devotees went out on Harinaam Sankirtan. After some days, the heavens opened. Prabhupada said, the Harinaam Sankirtan solved the problems. Some people may feel that simplistic thinking, but our understanding is that the holy name creates global revolutions. We're living in a time when there's so much war, there's so much aggression, there's so much global issues. And doing something like the World Holy Name Day, where everyone comes together from all parts of the world to chant, we can't imagine what kind of global impact this vibration is creating through the ether. We know that when Advaita Acharya saw the world in such a precarious situation, and it's explained, Hunkar, he was like a roaring lion. He was chanting, and his chanting was penetrating the layers of the universe, and ultimately was one of the causes for Mahaprabhu to descend. So we can understand that when the devotees come together, chant loudly in huge numbers, then it has a global impact that we may not be able to measure.
So, speak a little bit about Srila Prabhupada as the global ambassador of the holy name, because he's the one that actually brought the chanting on the international scale.
Prabhupada wrote his poem on the Jaladuta, Bhakti nahi bedi nahi khub naam daro. In his infinite humility, Prabhupada said, I don't have any devotion. Bhakti nahi. Bedi nahi. I don't have much knowledge. Khub naam daro. But I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. So the way I understand that is that the humility of the pure devotee is the reality of the conditioned soul. And so when we wake up in the morning and we say, I don't have much devotion, I don't have much knowledge, if we can then say, but I do have faith in the holy name, then everything can be all right. And so Srila Prabhupada came with the holy name. And he made Hare Krishna a household word. Srila Prabhupada fulfilled the prediction that Lord Krishna's name would go to every town and village. So Prabhupada will remain eternally the ambassador of the holy name of Krishna in Kali Yuga. He was empowered to do that. Paschatya Desha Tarine, to deliver all the Western worlds and beyond. So we offer our infinite gratitude to Srila Prabhupada, who gave us the greatest gift, the holy name of Krishna.
Please share a final message for our audience about Kirtan.
We'd like to thank the Kirtan ministry for really bringing the theology, the importance of the holy name to all of our devotees in ISKCON and to the world. Srila Prabhupada said, Krishna consciousness is so simple, you may just miss it. And so, sometimes the simplicity of the holy name means that we often underestimate the holy name of Krishna. So we're deeply grateful for all the service that the devotees are doing to remind us of how this is our sacred duty, but it's our sacred privilege, and it's the sacred gift that we want to share with the whole world. Harinaam eva kevalam. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for joining us today. We're so grateful to you. Wishing you all the best in your preaching.
Thank you so much.
And I hope we can come together and have this kind of discussion, Hari Katha, and do some Hari Kirtan together as well.
That would be wonderful.
Jai Ho.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.